I think I'll be now speaking on the acanthamoeba keratitis. Although it is not very common in our country, it tends to be, it is less than, responsible for less than 1% of all the infectious keratitis. Contact lens users were the classical, change करेंगे ये change करेंगे laptop okay. So contact lens users classically have acanthamoeba keratitis as reported in all the Western literature, but in India it is not so common. Other risk factors are the homemade cell line, use of contaminated or swimming pool water, trauma, vegetable matter, injury, and also has been reported after orthokeratology. It tends to be unilateral with severe pain because of keratoneuritis, more in immunocompetent patients, and these patients generally fail to respond to antibacterial, antiviral, or antifungal therapy. In the early stages, it classically mimics herpetic keratitis. In the late stages, it mimics fungal keratitis. I'm sure if we see cases such as this in our clinics, we would never say this is acanthamoeba keratitis. We will probably diagnose this as herpetic keratitis. But this is how it looks like in the early stages. There may be epithelial irregularities, which could be punctate or linear, pseudodendritic-form lesions, and haze may be there in 25 to 50% of the cases. And this denotes early disease. And these are the dendrites. The difference between the dendrites of acanthamoeba and herpes is that there are no terminal bulbs in cases of acanthamoeba. The stromal infiltrates, it tends to be patchy, and radial perineural infiltrates are present, which are pathognomonic. They are present in 2.5 to 57% of the cases. And if you do the confocal microscopy in these patients, then you will be able to appreciate that this actually grows along the nerves. Classical picture of acanthamoeba keratitis, when we begin to suspect that it is acanthamoeba keratitis, is something like this. Ring infiltrates, which could be partial or complete, although ring infiltrates may be present with other organisms as well. In 19 to 93% of the cases, there could be satellite lesions with stromal thinning, lysis, and perforation. Important thing is that generally there is absence of neovascularization, although if it is associated scleritis, then it may be present. It progresses slowly. There are periods of remission. It may take days or months. And in cases of scleritis, which is present in 11 to 42% of the cases, there could be deep scleral vascular engorgement with scleral nodules, and resolution may lead to ectasia. And this is how it looks like. The diagnosis, it is very important to send not only the corneal scrapes, but any other ancillary materials such as contact lens case, contact lens solution for culture and sensitivity. Confocal microscopy should be done where you can actually see the cysts and the trophozoites, and at times even corneal biopsy may have to be undertaken. Trophozoites are difficult to distinguish from macrophages and do not stain well, and cysts are typically polygonal and double-walled, and they can be stained with chalcofluor white, methamine silver, as well as PAS. And this is how they look like with chalcofluor white and with PAS. Cultures should not only be sent on blood agar or chocolate agar, but also non-nutrient agar with live or killed gram-negative bacilli, E. coli, Aeromonas, and Klebsiella overlay. And the classical therapy that we follow at our center is the combination therapy of a biguanide, PHMB 0.02%, or chlorhexidine 0.02%, and diamidine, which is propamidine 0.1%, or hexamidine 0.1%. One hourly is given for 48 hours round the clock, and then hourly drops by the day for 72 hours. After 5 days, 2 hourly by the day for 3 to 4 weeks. That means for up to 1 month. And it is tailored thereafter. Generally, the therapy lasts for 6 months. And if there's a drug toxicity, one can withdraw the drugs for 3 to 5 days and then continue PHMB. And if there is an inadequate response, then always think of a superadded infection with bacterial, fungal, or herpes. Topical steroids have been advocated in low potency QID doses after 2 weeks of biguanide therapy, especially in cases where there's anterior scleritis, severe pain, indolent ulcer, and AC inflammation, and withdraw the steroids after inflammation is controlled for 4 weeks with the biguanides. The other agents have also been used, such as miconazole and clotrimazole 1 to 2%, and systemic therapy is advocated when there's scleritis, deeper lesions, or limbitis with itraconazole, ketoconazole, or fluconazole 200 milligrams BD. Penetrating keratoplasty should be done after medical control, preferably, and this may take up to 12 months. In active cases, there is almost always a chance of graft failure, although you may be able to save the eye, and there are higher chances of reinfection as well as severe inflammation. So after 1 year of successful medical therapy, the optical penetrating keratoplasty should be done, and the outcomes are better, but recurrences may be there if you do it earlier. Now, a couple of studies, most of them have been published by Moorfields Eye Hospital by Dr. John Dart. This was a study to show the outcomes of therapeutic and optical penetrating keratoplasty in acanthamoeba keratitis, and they found that almost 25% of the cases which underwent a PK or LK, half of them were therapeutic PK and the other half was optical PK. Of course, the optical PK group did better as compared to the therapeutic group, but the therapeutic PK group was also the one that was most often misdiagnosed as herpes keratitis. And where possible, keratoplasty should be delayed until a time when the eye becomes uninflamed. A word about acanthamoeba sclerokeratitis, because that is tends to be a little immunological in its course. And again, Dr. John Dart's study published in Ophthalmology found that acanthamoeba keratitis, when it is associated with scleritis, is associated with very poor clinical outcomes. And in these cases which are not responsive, it is prudent to start immunosuppressive therapy on cyclosporin, azathioprine or mycophenolate, and in their cohort, the immunosuppressive therapy, patients on immunosuppressive therapy did well. Again, the same group published this study on the role of topical steroids in acanthamoeba keratitis, and found that topical steroids, if they are given for acanthamoeba keratitis, is predictive of a poorer visual outcome, and suboptimal visual acuity was seen more in cases where topical steroids had been used, of course erroneously in cases of acanthamoeba keratitis. Thank you for your attention. And